So it's time to haul your mid-century house forward into the 21st century, and your budget says this is a multi-phase operation. So where do you begin? What and how much can you do in 2026? Do you start with a big kitchen reno or get your feet wet with a little bathroom project? The wrong place to start is by running your maintenance checklist, replacing the furnace, new siding, new windows, taking care of anything the inspector might have told you about when you bought your home. I know this feels like the responsible place to begin, and it's the advice you'll get from the inspector themselves, every contractor, maybe your father-in-law. It feels like the logical thing to do. This advice couldn't be more wrong for you and your mid-century house. It's going to result in missed opportunities, raise costs overall, and result in irreparable damage to the mid-century quality of your house. The right order is going to depend on you, your family, your budget, your temperament, the overall scale of everything you want to change, and the house itself. Don't panic though. We can figure this out together, and that's exactly what I'm going to show you how to do in today's video. The most important thing to know at this point is that you shouldn't start with one little project first and then plan, figure out, do the whole rest of your remodel. You do want at least a conceptual overview of everything you might tackle in your house so that you're not going to prevent yourself with a first project from taking on the next project or the fourth project in a really efficient, effective way that suits your life and fits your budget. I've seen a lot of homeowners, including myself, get really overwhelmed when they start to contemplate everything they might ever do. The secret to slicing through that overwhelm is the mid-century master plan method. This is what I do for every one of my one-on-one clients. It's what I talk about on the Mid-Mod Remodel podcast, on videos like this. It's what I teach in my design classes and what I coach homeowners through in my DIY design program, Ready to Remodel. Following the master plan method helps my clients and students stay on track as they start with one small project as soon as possible and carry on making decisions that continue to compound. This is the regret-proof way to remodel, which means you never do a first project you cringe at that you then have to circle back around at the end and do again. As I talked about in an earlier video in this series, if you have already gotten to that place, if you've already done a bathroom remodel and then realized you didn't like how that turned out, you're fine. We can always come back and amend. We can always learn from previous experiences. But the best way to plan any small project in a mid-century home is to have in mind everything you might do and set your design style and your overall goals first. So if you're hung up in a loop of thinking about a design project you might do, the spring project on your roster, and then realizing you can't do that until this other thing has been decided, and also there's this piece, and how much is that third thing you want to do 2 years from now going to cost? Are you stopping yourself from taking that on if you spend too much right now? Is this not the right place to begin? If this loop sounds familiar to you, today's video should help. A couple of different philosophies for how to set that first project that you're going to tackle, the 2026 project. Maybe it's smaller, maybe it's a big one, but here's a couple of different ways it might go. If you're a new homeowner, a first-time homeowner, if you're new to this home, if you're not confident in your skill even to hand off a project to someone else to manage, you might want to get your feet wet with a certain small project that lets you sort of test out. How does it go to work with contractors? How does it go to make decisions? How does it feel? How close to your real world budget will a small project be? You might want to start an entry update, a few changes to the exterior, or a small bathroom that's not going to take your whole house out of commission. That's a great place to begin if you need a confidence boost. If there's a particular part of the house, this is probably going to be the kitchen that's been driving you nuts, that you've been living with frustration with for a while, that is really the thing that is making you feel like you need to change anything about the house at all, even though you've got a longer list. It's the kitchen. I know it's the kitchen that's been making you just feel like a remodel is inevitable. Sometimes the right move is to dive in first and start there. Believe me, when you get all the details right on a kitchen, and you feel good about all of those material choices, all of the contractors you work with, the process you took on, you can do further phases in your remodel in a rinse and repeat way, working with the same team, making some of the same material choices over and over again, and every other part of the house feels easier once you've gotten a kitchen remodel done. Before you can know what project to start with, you need to know what are all the projects you might take on. And sometimes before you can tackle that first project with confidence, you need to know some of the big picture design decisions around each part of the house you're going to evict. Here's a ripped from the headlines examples from my own meeting calendar today. I was just talking with a mid-century homeowner who's moved into a house, lived with it for a little while, already discovered some of their initial questions and complaints aren't issues for them at all, and other things that they thought were fine, they now are having creative ideas around. But they know they need to do a basement remodel, changes to the kitchen that are connected to a breezeway, and also at some point in the future, a small push-out addition towards the back that's going to give them a new owner suite. All they want to do this spring is build a cheerful patio that they can flow out and have some fun outdoor living with. And they know that they can DIY this project with a few friends coming over to get paid in pizza and beer. Unfortunately, though, they're still stuck because even though they know project one is the patio, they don't want to lock in any of those decisions until they know if they're changing the way that you'll get out to the backyard from the kitchen in a future kitchen remodel. And they don't want to plan the scale and size of the patio until they know if and how much of the backyard they're going to take up with a push-out addition for the owner's suite. If you're not even sure what any of those things are, the right order will come to you organically once you've run through, spoiler alert, the steps of the master plan method. When you go through Dream and you think about how you need to personalize the house to fit the life you're living, do you need more office space, more bedrooms, better guest space, better hosting areas, flow so you can keep tabs on each other? What are the social needs the house is not meeting right now? When you've gotten familiar with the house itself, the discovery phase, when you've learned a little bit about its structure, when you've maybe had your first water influx disaster that needed repair, when you have done a little bit of DIY repairing around the house, when you've just read through the inspection report and you feel like you know what are all the things that are coming up on your maintenance horizon, then you've got the sort of have-to list in your back pocket. When you've gone through the distill phase and you've set your version of a mid-century style, maybe not every specific product, but the kinds of finishes you're trying to preserve in the house if you've still got them, or add back into the house if you're recreating a mid-century finish pattern in a house that's been flipped or, aggressively 90s, whatever your situation is. And when you've thought about the options to Goldilocks yourself into the right decision, it's always the best if you can think about what you could do, what you might do, and then get to what you will do. Knowing that you've ruled out several plausible options helps you feel more confident about the choices you're making overall for your Right Now project and your 5-year plan. I walked through each of those phases in detail in the last video. It's linked below this one if you want to go check it out. But today I'm going to talk about the 5th phase of the master plan method, which I didn't really cover last week, to develop your master plan. Now, there's a reason I call this 5D thinking. I like alliteration, but I could have chosen a different D for that last step. I could have called it document your master plan. But the step is called develop because until you've finished your last project in your 5, 10, or forever plan on your house, you're never really done coming back to the master plan method. And you may find yourself quickly cycling back through each of the steps in micro form to answer any specific question, whether it's how to tackle an entire kitchen versus just picking a specific product. You'll be asking yourself what your needs are, what's going on in the house as it stands, what your style is, what your options are, and then back to your decision. To illustrate this, I'm going to lean into some of the materials I use to teach this method to my students inside of the Ready to Remodel program. When you're DIYing your own master plan and you get to this step, you need to start thinking about the level at which you're taking on different parts of the house. I think of these as level 1, 2, and 3. And level 1 is the least you might do, replacing a light fixture with another light fixture in the same spot, a simple rewiring project. Not everyone can DIY that, but it's a thing you can figure out how to do with YouTube videos. A level 2 project is still probably DIY, although it may include you doing some of the work and you hiring a handyman or a subcontractor to come in and help you with electrical, plumbing, specialty tile work. This is the kind of project you can take on yourself without ever moving out of the house, and it lends itself particularly well with multi-phase projects and sort of weekend warrior energy. A level 3 remodel, as I teach inside of Ready to Remodel, is the kind of big program where you are going to hire a general contractor to come in and take care of one whole room, a couple of spaces, the entire house at once. You'll share your vision with them and hand it off. It'll be their thing to take care of, and then they'll report back to you and fulfill the terms of your contract, hence contractor, as you set it out. The important thing to remember about phasing is that you don't have to do the entire house, all the different parts of the house at the same level. Some parts of the house, often a kitchen, is going to be a general contractor project, unless you've got a great deal of time, energy, and enthusiasm. Other projects, like building a patio in the backyard or even a small bathroom remodel, might be something that you can take on yourself, and this is a great way to control for budget. In the develop phase of the master plan method, you're going to be documenting your choices. Yes, we will document during the develop phase, and you'll be showing floor plan changes you plan to make, sketches or photos that illustrate the kind of changes you might make, built-in styles you'll use, examples that are going to help you illustrate to anyone, whether you're drawing or rendering themselves, or if you're just finding photo examples that help you to show what you're talking about to someone else you're working with. The way that I teach this to my Ready to Remodel students is that they can put together a document in any format, a Google Doc, a PowerPoint, or Canva. I've got templates for all of this inside the program, but they're going to look something like this, the way you pull together ideas so that you can easily remember them yourself and present them to anyone else you might need to get to help you with a project, whether that's a contractor or a material supplier in a store. As you get into the place where the rubber meets the road, and sometimes this happens as you're working through a project, sometimes you're going to do pricing before in order to break a project into phases, you'll want to compare apples to apples as you seek out cost information about how much everything you're thinking about will take to make it happen. Inside my program, I use resources like the bid comparison form and the contractor management spreadsheet that let you take information you're getting from the outside world and file it away into the right places to make sure you've got all the things considered and you're not going to be surprised by a missing piece of cost further down the line. This is also a place where, particularly if you're doing a self-managed remodel, you're going to take yourself from the kind of mood board to style sheet material concepts and get into the specific products that you're going to use, where they come from, what they look like, specific product links, how many of them you need, is it going to be 2 in the house or 20, one for every room, and the cost per unit or per square foot, things like that. All of that can be tracked in a spreadsheet like this one. I'm able to answer specific questions about phasing or specific little decisions, products, placements, ADA accessibility, how to explain what you're asking for to a contractor in language that you and they can both understand. These are the kind of questions I answer regularly for my students at our monthly architect office hours call. If all of this seems useful to you, I would love to help you out with it, and you can learn more about the whole program by going to midmod-midwest.com/ready. Jump in with the pre-recorded lesson content that's available in video and audio format, so you can just go through it at your own pace. I've got templates, guides, and workbooks for just about everything you could come across in the beginning and middle and end of a master plan process, and monthly advice for you at the architect office hours call. If this video is what's getting you up at night, what order to go in, where to begin, then Ready to Remodel is going to be an excellent program to help you allay some of your fears, gain confidence, and figure out where to start on something this year. Before we wrap up the video, let's walk through a couple of things that determine how many phases and what scale of phases you're going to bring your project up into. Largely in the real world, this is going to be determined by your budget, by your life stage, and by your ability to tolerate a certain amount of disruption in your life. The budget is the most obvious limiting factor. If you simply can't afford to do everything that you want to do to your house right now, you're going to start with what you can afford or what your bridge loan or HELOC will cover and take on the rest of it at a later date when you've saved or are taking out loans for more. You'll balance that against your tolerance for disruption. In an ideal world, you'd figure out everything you wanted to be done to your house, budget for all of it, move out of the house, wait while all that work is done, and move back into a perfect dream house all ready for you to go. The tolerance that you and your whole family have for disruption is going to be a big factor in how much you decide you can take on at one go, and it may also determine the order. A lot of people choose to do, for example, enough of a basement to get a workable second kitchen going in the house before they take their main kitchen offline, especially if they want to live in the house during a remodel. That third factor, so budget, tolerance for disruption, and your life phase. This has a lot to do often with family structure. For people who are expecting kids or have small kids at home, it may be a lot of pressure to get extra space into the house to reconfigure the number of bedrooms so that you've got non-babies moving into each their own space the way that you have designated for them to be. You often have less free time than just about anyone in any other situation, so you're more likely to hire the work out or be willing to do a move out, move back in remodel to get the project done without having to triple task parenting, working, and being a full-time remodeler of your own home. For people with slightly older kids, I often help them walk through the decisions between wanting to make changes to your house soon enough and make changes to the social parts of your house soon enough that your kids will actually experience living in the house that way. Particularly for families that need more space in a den, more casual living space, more connection between kitchen and other social areas, you want to have that kind of a remodel in place while your kids are still hanging out with you in the house. This might not even be when they're going off to college. It might be before they turn into drivers and want to go spend all their time with their friends. Once you're an empty nester, or even as you're approaching empty nest, you're going to think differently about what needs to be prioritized. It's less important to make a super cush space for your teenagers if they're about to go on the road, but you might want to be thinking about a guest space that's a little bit of a relaunch pad for young adults who might be coming home for the summer and want some semi-private space in maybe a basement suite that could be a rental suite, a place for your aging parents to come and stay with you for a while as needed in the future, or even somewhere that if you plan to live in the house forever, a caregiver could live with you with, again, a little bit of privacy. Thinking about the priorities of your house as part of your life stages is also part of master plan thinking. Once you've thought about the order of operations, what you're going to start on first, you're going to probably start to think about how can you make sure the new space you tackle is going to have as many mid-century details and the proper mid-century feeling intact in it. In the next couple of weeks, I'll be covering the cornerstones of great mid-mod remodeling choices. The simple shapes, the asymmetry, the well-balanced flow between one space and another, and the materials that say mid-century update in any project, large or small. So stay tuned for that. I'll be talking about it more over the next couple of weeks.